Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of Roundtable for the upcoming Beijing International Film Festival. I'm your host today, Fei Fei. And this year, one theme at the festival really stands out. It's called Travel China Through Film. Because some stories don't just play out on screen. They're rooted in real streets, real neighborhoods, real places that you can actually visit yourself. So in this special series, we are pairing one film with one destination and exploring how cinema might just inspire your next trip. And today, we're presenting our first pick from the film festival. And join me today for the discussion are Steve Hatherly and Yangyang. Hello, Yangyang. You've been following the festival closely and keeping an eye on this year's lineup. So let's start with your pick. And what film in particular do you have in mind?
Yes, thanks for having me. I picked a film called Crossing a Dawn, but it hasn't been widely released yet. Based on what's been reviewed so far, the story begins with something very modern. It's about two strangers. They both had a failed date. One is a designer named Xu Qiu, and the other is a writer named Chen Yuzhou. However, even though their dates are not going as planned, they ended up spending one night together in the city. But here's the twist. They become what the film calls a limited time couple.
What is that?
Well, that's really interesting.
Most relationships.
I think it's open to our interpretations.
Right.
Yeah, to our audiences. So from what I know so far, the limited time couple is how the film uses this idea as a way to explore people's connection in the modern cities like Beijing. So in these, mega cities or bigger cities, relationships can sometimes feel fast-paced or uncertain. So we have a word, fast food relationship for it. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean the film is endorsing that kind of relationship or backing that. It's more like observing or questioning these dynamics rather than giving a clear answer. But having said that, one thing to be noted is that the director has mentioned that he wanted to encourage people to express their feelings more openly, even in small everyday moments, not necessarily in a grand or long-term sense, but just being honest about what you feel when you feel it.
So in the film, they know that they're not going to be together for a long time.
Well, I suppose so, because from what is released so far, maybe they had, difficulties. Maybe they realized the relationship are not going to last long, or at least from the beginning, they don't think their relationship are going to last long. But they just, maybe they're brave enough to embrace it, or brave enough to say their express their emotions.
I kind of like that. It sounds very mature, actually. Like, this probably isn't going to go anywhere, but here we are together in the city this evening, so why not just enjoy it or try to enjoy it with each other?
Yeah, instead of fixating on the current failure or encounters that, according to the plot, is that they're originally set up with separate dates, online dates, but both of their dates didn't show up.
Yeah,
possibly
like that,
because the film is not officially released at the moment. They will be releasing that as part of the festival. But I think it can sound really familiar when it comes to when you are having this kind of encounter. You share this kind of experiences. Why not just open yourself up to the current encounters that you currently have?
Yeah.
I think it's a very positive mindset when it comes to relationships, right?
Yeah, focus on the present.
And also in our discussion today, we're not only just talking about the film itself, we're also pairing it with the city where this story is located. And in this particular film, it's located in the city of Beijing, right?
Yes. Well, one of the key filming locations is Dongsi in East Beijing's Dongcheng district. In the movie, you may see neon lights, quiet streets, late-night corners of Dongsi. And in reality, that's where the travel through film part really comes in. Because Dongsi is a really fascinating place. It has, basically, it's where the old Beijing and the modern life overlap. overlap in a very subtle way because on the one hand, it's deeply historical. The area is home to multiple protected cultural sites. For example, old mansions. You've got places like Fuwang Mansion and Nanxingcang, which carry centuries of history. And also you've got temples or temple fair places such as Longfu Temple, where a lot of people will gather during holiday. And at the same time, you also have traditional courtyard homes where everyday people live. So it's really incredibly alive. It's, in my opinion, it's a museum and also a neighborhood.
So have you been to Dongsi before, Steve?
I don't believe I have.
Do you know where exactly Dongsi is?
On the eastern side, so Chaoyang area?
It's actually in the Dongcheng district area. It's sort of in where I think Forbidden City, Jingshan Park,
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of these places are located.
Okay, sure, I've been there.
So, yeah, you can also, get a glimpse with a lot of alleyways, the Hutong alleyways as well. And in particular, when it comes to the Longfu Temple area, where Yang just mentioned, I think it's the place kind of be symbolizing what Dongcheng district can represent is that the Longfu Temple has a really, really long history. It dates back to probably in the Ming Dynasty, more than 600 years ago. But along the way, it got burned down a number of times and got rebuilt a number of times as well. And then fast forward to 1990s, it also has China's first modern shopping mall built in this area. It's one of the first 8-storage department store where Beijing saw its first modern commercial building with escalators and air conditioning. So it's really cool. It blends in the ancient aspects of Beijing and also the modern aspects of Beijing.
Which is kind of what this movie is doing. If it's shot in that district where you have all that history. And yes, I have been there. I didn't realize I was in that district, but I have been there. So you've got all the history there, but then you've got the modern aspect of what modern dating maybe looks like in Beijing too. So it's kind of a juxtapose, which is kind of a cool aspect of the film too, I guess.
Yes, and here is the interesting part. The direction you walk actually changes your experience in Dongsi. Because if you go from west to east, it becomes more about food. So you'll pass small, maybe character-filled restaurants one after another. And if you go from east to west, it feels more like local. So you'll see residents going about their lives. It's very unfiltered. So it's almost mirrors the film itself, different directions, different emotional outcomes. And also perfect places for dating because you'll encounter a lot of restaurants or coffee shops. So yeah,
going along the Hutong alleyways throughout different seasons is just a very romantic experiences because in the springtime, like currently, there are a lot of flowers like peach blossoms. But in for example, summertime, you get a lot of trees and Hutong alleyways and Yang mentioned cafes and also art museums, art galleries, and also small eateries. And then in the fall, you also get the reds, the yellows of the falling leaves, and you you stroll along the Hutong alleyways and popping into different ancient architectures.
Those Hutongs are like tiny mazes where it's easy to get lost.
Be careful.
Easy to walk into other people's homes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the cool thing about it is that suddenly in Beijing you go from this really wide city street with lots of traffic and buses and cars and lots of people on the sidewalks, and the entrances to these Hutongs, they don't look like anything sometimes. They just look like a small alleyway entrance that you would never really consider walking down. But my travel advice would be definitely just walk down those alleyways. And sometimes getting lost can be part of the romance, right?
Exactly.
If you don't have a particular schedule, just keep going. Just turn left, turn right, turn around, keep going straight, whatever. You'll eventually find your way out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You might not know which end you came out of. But yeah, it adds to the charm of the neighborhoods. And when you do pop into those neighborhoods, the people who live there like you said, Yangyang, they're just living their lives. They're just going about their daily business. So it's kind of cool. It feels like you jumped 100 years back in time.
Yeah, and do you know the trick to go walking through the maze of the alleyway hutong is just go in one direction.
Oh.
If you really don't know where you're going, where you are about, and you're really lost in the hundreds of different hutongs just going into one direction, and somehow you end up on a main road, even though maybe you don't know that main road, but at least it'll be close to a subway station or whatever.
Find a way home.
Yeah.
Yeah, suggestion taken.
Yeah, so this year, if you follow films at the Beijing International Film Festival, you might also find yourself following your pathways beyond the screens, into real neighborhoods, real streets, maybe not only here in Beijing, but in other cities, not only in China, possibly in another country. So if you really follow some of the pathways of a particular film, feel free to send us your photos or your experiences in audio file to roundtablepodcast@qq.com. And that's all the time we got for this bonus episode of Roundtable. Stay tuned for more movie picks from Roundtable team and where to travel next. I'm Fei Fei with Yang Yang and Steve Hatherly. See you next time.